Hi, it's Barbecue Brian from the House of Q, and I'm in my backyard right now where it's a beautiful sunny day and the snow is melting, and hopefully nothing off of the roof right above me is going to drop onto my cooker or onto me as I'm doing my video shoot today. But lo and behold, I want to share with you a tremendous recipe that's easy to miss if you're a hunter. So if you've gone for your elk, you've gone for your moose, even some venison, and you go to get your meat processed, and the butcher asks you, say, so do you want the shanks off of your venison? And you kind of go, I don't know what to do with them. So, and you go, I don't know what to do with them. So you end up grinding that meat because you know you're going to make your burgers and your sausages and everything else that you want to make from your hunt. Well, this is the dish that I'm going to do today. What to do with shanks. So it doesn't matter if it's elk, venison, boar, anything of that nature where it's got a shank. It's the lower leg portion of an animal, and it's got the big bone in there, lots of cartilage in it, and I'll show you the steps to cook all of that on charcoal to get some great flavor and make a wonderful braised shank meat. So to get started, right behind me here is a drum smoker. So in the bottom is some charcoal that's already lit. I'll show you that here shortly. But it's lit, it's nice and warm. I'm going to have some nice searing temperature on the shanks that I'm going to do. I could use these on my smoker and give the nice crust on the outside, so smoke them first. But it's a couple of steps that we're going to go through. So first is, got some charcoal going, but now let's prepare the shanks. Now, I don't have any elk shanks today. I don't have any venison shanks, but I do have some lamb shanks. They're really similar in size and shape and not really necessarily flavor, but lo and behold, this recipe is lending to any of those types of meats. So don't be afraid to doing this recipe for all of them. So there's 4 of them in here in the bowl, and the first step we want to do is get some crust on the outside, some great flavor. And so there's 4 shanks in here. I'll drizzle a little bit of oil all over top of these 4 shanks. Just kind of coat them around, make sure they're nicely coated. And once we've done that, we need some seasoning on it. So you may have some favorite steak spice. You may have a stash of some barbecue rub that you want to use. And for me in this instance, because of the steps that I'm going to go through, I'm going to use one of House of Q's, a Gusto d'Italia. So this is an Italian seasoning, and it's got some fennel seeds and everything else in there. It's got some great flavor. So I'm going to liberally coat all over these lamb shanks, the Gusto d'Italia, toss them about, and then get them on the grill to get some nice crust going. So in the drum smoker here, you can see the charcoal's lit. Oh, that's getting warm. It's nice and hot. So now I can get my shanks in here to get some color. So at this point, all I'm doing is getting color on the outside of this meat. In go the 4 pieces that I have here. Get that 4th one. There we go. And you're going to get some nice charring on the outside. Roll them around so it's all on all 4 sides, or all the way around each of the shanks. And make sure you just got some crust. That's the only thing that you're shooting for at this point in time. You don't need to look for doneness or the complete cook of the shanks. So I'll roll these around and get some nice crust on the outside. So these are looking great. Every few minutes I've been rolling these around to get all the sides with some nice crust on the outside. And the thing that you want to point out here, or what I want to point out at this point, is you want to kind of season liberally with your seasoning. Get some nice crust on the outside by rotating all around. And this is that great flavor, because as we get through all of the steps cooking this is one of that very first layers that's really important as you're cooking a braised meat. And so you can start to see the meat starting to shrink even off the shank. It's got even some char crust on there. Oh, this is going to be tasty. So the shanks have come off. They've got some charring. And next is inside the drum right here, I've raised the rack where we were grilling to be a little further away from the charcoal that's lit. And of course be towards the top of it, so it's vertical. It all depends on what cooker you're using, but this is what I'm doing today. And inside there, I put a great big cast iron pot that has a lid, a Dutch oven if you will, or if you've got one of those are perfect. If you've got just a cast iron skillet, a sizable one, You can do exactly this, but make sure you've got even a couple sheets of foil to put on top to allow it, when we get into the braise here, to have a lid on top of that. So keep that in mind. But in the pot, we're going to add in our mirepoix, all of the ingredients to give us some great flavor for our braising liquid. And so our choices today will be some celery, carrots, and onions. The recipe is typically 2 or 3 cloves of garlic. I might have 8. It's a matter of preference. So garlic is great with lamb, so that's what I'm doing here, and some bay leaves, and they're all going to go in with some stock and some rosemary for some great flavor. Now you might need to tweak what you have for your recipe of what you want for ingredients, but that's a pretty decent mixture of combination of flavors: the onions, carrots, the garlic, and the celery, along with some bay leaves and some rosemary. That's just an earthy flavor that's there. And of course some great beef stock. So I'll show you how everything goes in the pot. So here's my Dutch oven, nicely warming up. Make sure you got a glove on there, not that stuff gets warm. And in the cast iron, I've got some oil already there. If you throw in some onions, all of the garlic, the carrots, and the celery, everybody goes in there. If you want some extra flavor, make sure you caramelize this up. Give it some nice searing or even browning. Don't burn them or anything of that nature, but stir this around. Even put the lid back on for a few minutes and allow all your vegetables to saute in here. That'll give a great flavor and just add a whole layer of yumminess. So on goes the lid, and we'll stir that around and get ready for the next ingredients. So one last check in here. Our onions are starting to soften. We didn't develop a lot of color here yet. I'm anxious to cook. If I had the time for another 15-20 minutes, I could keep getting my vegetables nice and soft. But to this pot, I'm going to add in a couple of cups of stock. This is going to be cold, so it's going to rapidly cool this pot down. In there, I've got a whole can of tomato sauce. You can use tomato paste, but you might need to add some more stock or some more water or even some wine. And the last one I'm going to add in here is some rosemary. I didn't have any fresh ones, but I did have ground. So I'm going to put maybe a teaspoon or 2 in the pot. Just mix this all around. And you've got a really rough stew, but this is our braising liquid. And right on top of all of this is where we're going to place those seared lamb shanks. Here they are. Oh, look at the color already on those shanks. 1, 2, 3, and here goes 4. There they are. Now, you're going to put the lid back on, and this is going to cook at a medium temperature. It's rather hot right now, but you're going to cook this at about 300 degrees for about 90 minutes or so, and then we'll check it again. So, back shortly. All right. So, just checking in, and here's our lamb shanks. Aren't they looking beautiful? That's so awesome. Now, it's been about 90 minutes, well, actually an hour and 3/4. So working on 2 hours, and I came out here to check what's going on, and I grabbed a thermometer, and in the meat part of the shanks that are in here, as the temperature goes on here on a digital thermometer, what I'm looking for is above 200 degrees. So that one's pushing 186. You might want to check a few of these. That one's well in 195 right there and rising. So 196 or so, and this one might even be done. 190, well, mid 190s, and that one as well. Just perfect. They need just a little bit longer. They'll be nice and fork tender, and they'll start to shred just apart here. You'll see how that picks apart. But that's what I'm looking for texture. So it might be 90 minutes, it might be 2.5 hours, it might be 4 hours, whatever it is. That is the temperature and also the texture that I'm looking for. There they are. Man, those look good. Now, to do the next steps is we want to remove that whole pot from the cooker, and I want to remove the lamb shanks first and set those aside. So just get your tongs and a bowl One, there's 2, 3, and 4. We'll set those aside, and we'll come back to those ones. Might have a snack on them, but anyway. So in the pot right now is the sauce and all of the vegetables, and in the vegetables are, the terminology is they're fatigued. They're really not contributing anything more. Everything that they contribute from the vitamins and the flavor and the textural component has already been, they're expired, they're done. And so I'm going to use a slotted spoon and just scoop out all of the vegetables and leave all of the liquid in the pot. So some people like pureeing all of these vegetables and using that to thicken up the sauce. That's perfectly fine. For me, I've got a different plan for today, and I want to show you how to do the steps for the gravy for our shanks. All right, so there's all the vegetables. We'll set those aside. Now in the pot, all we've got left is some of the liquid, which is awesome. But we've got opportunity. It's kind of runny and it's quite thin. Wish I could show you, but it's rather thin, and I could reduce it by just continuing to just let it simmer and evaporate off and thicken up that way. I could maybe add in some of the vegetables and puree them. But in this instance, what I want to do is add in more red wine, some more flavor for these lamb shanks. There's about a cup in here, and I want to take maybe 3/4 of it. Keep a little bit here in the pot, in the measuring cup, and I'm going to add in some flour. This will be about a tablespoon of flour, maybe a little bit more, and I want to stir this up quite vigorously so that it's thin and completely immersed into that wine, and so there isn't any chunks. And I'll add that as well back into the pot with the rest of the liquids and the wine and this here. Now this is actually going to create a nice thick gravy to put on top of our lamb. So once you've got that in the pot, let's throw this all around, and this goes back in the fire. Oh, there we go. So now we'll check on our gravy, our sauce. That's starting to thicken up, which is absolutely perfect. Oh, found a bay leaf. There's one in there somewhere. I'll find it. Now, since our shanks have been just sitting outside, I don't want them to cool too much. And so this is starting to thicken up. You can see it bubbling. To bring it all back together and get really nice and happy, I'm going to put these back into that gravy. Maybe even roll them around to give them a coating of flavor. Oh yeah. Ooh, it's getting hot in there. There we go. There's 2. There's 3. And keep them nice and warm, and wait for the rest of our dish to finish up. I'll show you how I want to plate this here shortly. Make everything nice and yummy. All right, so we have a few more minutes on that, and we'll finish up our braised lamb shanks. I really wish you could smell this because it looks so delicious. The gravy's made, the lamb shanks are fully cooked, and in a bowl we've got some potatoes here, some mashed potatoes. And to plate this, not only do I want to get one of those shanks right on top of there, but of course some of that awesome gravy, and pour that all over. There we go. I'll show you this here. Oh, maybe a little more. This is just an awesome dish. I hope you can see all of that. Boy, this is going to be some good eating. Now, look, don't forget about these shanks. They're not that hard to cook. It takes a couple of steps. It takes a little bit of time. Let me look at my watch real quickly here. Total duration for me to cook on this was just over 3 hours. And that's about right. That's about the normal time for my budget. It could be a little bit quicker depending on the size or the meatiness or the tenderness that's there. But don't forget your thermometer. You need to get above 200 degrees on the meat temperature and be kind of at a medium to 350 degrees or so as you're cooking these on your smoker or your grill or over a campfire. Now, the recipe for this will be on the houseofq.com website, houseofq.com, under recipes. And all of the ingredients from the Gusto d'Italia, our barbecue sauces and so on, will be also on the website. And thank you for chiming in from both the Alberta Sportsman Show and the BC Sportsman Show. It's great to share a recipe with the hunters and fishermen that are going out in our neighborhood and appreciating the wildlife that's in our communities. So, I'm going to have a bite. I'm Barbecue Brian from the House of Q, and this is a braised lamb shank. See you soon.